Trucks filled with gold coins moved silently through the darkness, guarded by shadows and secrets. But in the middle of the night, Ibrahim Traoré stood waiting, his eyes fixed on the forbidden cargo that carried the hidden truth of Europe's involvement in a massive theft. What you are about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about power, greed, and betrayal. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe so you do not miss the rest of this shocking story. The night was heavy, the air thick with silence. In the distance, engines rumbled softly as 3 trucks rolled across the empty road. Their headlights were dim, almost afraid to be seen. To the common eye, they could have been ordinary transports carrying goods, but Traoré knew the truth. These trucks were not carrying grain, weapons, or supplies. They were carrying gold, mountains of gold coins that had been stolen in silence, hidden from the people whose land it belonged to. Traoré had been informed through whispers, pieces of information that slipped out of corrupted circles. Every clue pointed to the same horrifying truth. Europe was behind a secret movement, taking away what did not belong to them. The wealth of his people was being smuggled out in the dead of night. And if he did not act, generations would continue to suffer in poverty while their stolen riches fueled foreign empires. As the trucks came closer, Traoré tightened his grip. He was not holding a weapon in his hands, but he carried the weight of history, the cries of ancestors, and the burning need for justice. The drivers thought they were invisible, that no one would dare stop them. But suddenly, the sound of their engines was pierced by the voice of a man who stood fearless on the empty road. "Stop these trucks now." His words cut through the night like fire. For a moment, the drivers hesitated. Who would dare challenge them? Their orders had come from powerful forces. They were promised safe passage, no questions, no interruptions. But there he was, Ibrahim Traoré, standing with unshakable resolve. Inside the first truck, a driver looked nervously at his companion. "Do you know who he is?" the man whispered. The reply came in a trembling voice. "Yes, and if he is here, it means everything we were told was a lie." The truck slowed, the silence breaking into a clash of fear and doubt. The men inside knew they were caught, but they also knew the people behind them were not ordinary criminals. They were protected by influence, by nations who were behind diplomacy while feeding on the blood of others. What happened next would not just expose a theft. It would ignite a storm that no one was prepared for. The air around the trucks grew heavy as the engines fell silent. Darkness swallowed the road, but tension burned like fire. The men inside the vehicles did not dare to step out. They waited, their hearts pounding, as if silence could protect them. But Ibrahim Traoré was not a man who could be ignored. His presence alone made the night feel louder than thunder. He walked forward slowly, his eyes locked on the trucks as if he could see through the metal walls. His voice rose again, sharp and fearless. "Open the doors." The command echoed across the empty land. No soldier stood beside him, no weapons aimed at the drivers, but the strength in his tone made resistance impossible. The first driver's hands trembled as he reached for the lock. His mind raced with the promises he had been given. "No one will stop you," they had said. "The road is safe, and the gold is secured." But promises built on lies collapse when truth stands in the way. With shaking fingers, he pulled the heavy door open. The sound of metal scraping filled the air, and then it appeared, stacks upon stacks of gold coins glittering under the dim light of the headlights. The treasure glowed like fire, almost mocking the silence of the men who guarded it. For a moment, even Traoré remained still, not out of shock at the sight of gold, but at the weight of history it carried. These coins were not simple wealth. They were symbols of a continent suffering, stolen in pieces, carried across seas, hidden in vaults, and now transported once again like ordinary cargo. Each coin told a story of stolen land, stolen labor, and stolen futures. Traoré's chest tightened, not with greed, but with anger. He turned to the drivers, his voice calm but filled with steel. "Do you know what you are carrying?" One of the men swallowed hard and replied, "We were told it was nothing but metal for trade. We did not ask questions." His eyes betrayed the fear inside him. He knew that what he carried was far greater than he had been told. Traoré stepped closer, his gaze piercing. "This is not trade. This is theft, and you are part of it." The second driver finally broke under the pressure. "It is not us. We follow orders." The instructions came from beyond. from those who sit in offices across the sea. They said no one would dare to look. A bitter silence followed. The admission confirmed what Trier had feared. This was not an isolated act of corruption. It was a carefully designed network, protected by powerful hands in Europe. The gold inside the trucks was more than wealth. It was evidence, a living proof of betrayal that stretched across borders. And now, with the doors open, there was no turning back. The world would soon know, and those who thought they were untouchable would feel the ground shake beneath them. The silence around the trucks did not last long. Whispers turned into confessions as the drivers realized there was no escape. One of them leaned forward, his voice breaking under the weight of fear. "You do not understand. We were told this gold was secured for important allies. They said it was payment, a debt long owed to Europe. They said no one here had the right to question." Trier's jaw tightened, his fists clenched at his side. Every word felt like an echo of centuries past, when wealth was stripped from the land and carried away under banners of power. He stepped closer, the glow of the coins casting a pale light across his face. His reply was sharp, every syllable carrying the pain of generations. "A debt? To whom? These coins are not Europe's. They are not gifts. They are not loans. They are the blood of my people." The drivers exchanged a glance. They had been trained to stay silent, to obey, but fear tore away their loyalty. One of them finally whispered, "There are more. These trucks are not alone. Others move across borders every week, guarded by silence. The route changes, but the destination is always the same, ports that lead to Europe." The revelation struck like a storm. This was not a single theft. It was an endless chain, a system that had been perfected in shadows. Gold flowing out, poverty flowing in. A trade of lies. Trouyer's voice dropped to a low growl. "How long has this been happening?" The driver hesitated, but the truth slipped out. "Long before you came to power. The agreements were signed behind closed doors. Leaders before you looked the other way. Some even took their share. The people never knew. They thought the land was poor, but the wealth was never gone. It was only hidden." The words burned like fire. Betrayal did not come only from outside. It came from within. The gold had been stolen not only by Europe, but by the hands of those who claimed to serve their own people. Trouyer's chest tightened, rage mixing with sorrow. He understood now why poverty clung so tightly to his nation while riches sailed across seas. He looked back at the glowing mountains of coins, each one a reminder of silence bought and truth buried. The weight of responsibility pressed against him, but so did determination. This was no longer about one night or one convoy. This was about justice long denied. His voice carried through the night, strong and unshakable. "This will not move another step forward. Not tonight. Not ever again. If Europe believes it can keep stealing, then let them know their silence is broken." The drivers lowered their heads, their fear shifting into something else. They had lived in shadows, but in Trouyer's presence, they felt the rising force of truth. What had begun as a simple stop on an empty road had now turned into the opening of a wound that could no longer be hidden. The night grew colder, yet the fire inside Troyer only burned brighter. The trucks stood still, their secret revealed, while the weight of history pressed down on the moment. He walked closer to the open doors and let his hand brush against the coins. They were cold to the touch, but in his mind they burned with the cries of children who went hungry, the workers who labored in vain, and the mothers who buried their hopes in empty soil. The drivers stood motionless, afraid to move, afraid to speak. Finally, one of them broke the silence. "You cannot win against them. They control everything, the borders, the banks, even the leaders of your neighbors. If you stand against them, you will be crushed." Troyer turned slowly, his eyes burning with a calm fury. "Crushed? They have crushed us for centuries. They have drained our land, our sweat, our very lives. If silence is a price of survival, then survival is not worth it." The driver's lips trembled, but his words did not stop. "There is more than you see here. Documents hidden in the city, signed agreements, secret codes. They show who gives the orders, where the gold goes, and who receives it. But those papers are guarded by men far more dangerous than us." Troyer's heart pounded. This was the proof he needed, not only the gold, but a trail of signatures that connected the crime directly to European hands. Evidence that could not be denied. He stepped closer to the trembling man. "Where?" The driver hesitated, then whispered, "In the capital, under the protection of foreign advisers. They say the documents are untouchable. They believe no one will dare to expose them." A bitter smile crossed Trao's face. "Then they do not know me." The second driver shook his head in disbelief. "You are alone. Do you think one man can face an empire?" Traore's reply was sharp, filled with unshakable resolve. "One man can light a fire that burns an empire to the ground." The silence after his words was heavy, almost sacred. The drivers lowered their eyes, unable to meet his gaze. They knew they had witnessed something greater than defiance. It was the beginning of a storm. The gold coin shimmered behind him, stacks of stolen futures waiting to be reclaimed. Traoré raised his hand and gave a simple command. "These trucks go no further. From this moment, their journey ends here." His guards, who had followed silently from the shadows, stepped forward. They surrounded the trucks with determination etched on their faces. The drivers understood now that the silence of the night had ended. The theft was no longer hidden. Far away, across oceans, powerful men sat in polished offices, believing their secret safe. They did not know that on this night, in the heart of Africa, the empire of shadows had been pierced, and the name that echoed in the darkness was Ibrahim Traoré. The silence of the night gave way to whispers that spread faster than fire. Word of the intercepted trucks traveled through villages and towns. By dawn, people gathered at the roadside, drawn by the rumor that their stolen future had been caught red-handed. Men, women, and children stared at the mountains of gold coins, their eyes wide not with greed, but with disbelief. For years, they had been told there was nothing left, that their land was poor, that their sweat could never be enough. And now, the truth stood before them, shining under the rising sun. An old man stepped forward, his hands trembling as he looked at the treasure. His voice cracked as he spoke. "This is ours. All this time, it was ours." Tears rolled down his cheeks, and others began to weep with him. The crowd felt both joy and anger, joy at seeing proof of their hidden wealth, and anger at realizing how much had already been stolen away in silence. Traoré stood tall before them. His words were steady, yet filled with the weight of their suffering. "This gold was never theirs to take. It belongs to you, to your children, and to those who came before us. For too long, Europe has stolen in the dark, feeding itself while telling us we are poor. No more." The crowd roared, voices breaking the chains of silence that had bound them. But Traoré knew this was only the beginning. The driver's words still echoed in his mind, documents in the capital, guarded by foreign hands, evidence that tied the theft of powerful nations. Without those papers, the gold could be dismissed as rumor. With them, the truth would be undeniable. He turned to his most trusted guard, a man who had walked beside him through many battles. "Prepare the way. We move to the capital. We must find the documents before they are hidden again." The guard nodded, his face grim. "It will be dangerous. They will know you are coming." Traoré's reply was calm but unshakable. "Let them know. Let them fear." Far away, across borders, the news began to spread in different whispers. European officials, sitting in polished rooms, received hurried reports. The gold convoy had been stopped. The name of Ibrahim Traoré was on every tongue. Their silence cracked into panic. Some demanded the operation be denied. Others spoke of consequences if the evidence reached the public. But all of them felt the same chill. The empire of shadows they had built was no longer safe. Meanwhile, the crowd around the trucks grew larger. Songs of defiance rose. Hands reached toward the sky, and hope sparked like lightning in hearts that had long forgotten what freedom tasted like. For the first time, the people saw not just a leader, but a shield standing in front of them. And yet, deep within Traoré's mind, he knew this victory was fragile. The gold was safer now, but the greater battle waited in the capital, where secrets were written on paper and locked behind guarded doors. The road to the capital was not lit by lamps, but by the weight of truth carried in silence. The trucks remained behind under the guard of loyal men, while Traoré moved forward with a small group. Every mile felt heavy, as if unseen eyes followed from the shadows. He knew the men he was about to face were not simple thieves. They were architects of a system built on lies, men who believed themselves untouchable because their power stretched across oceans. As he entered the city, the whispers grew louder. Some warned him to turn back, others begged him to stay hidden. But his path was clear. The driver's words pointed to a place few dared to enter, the grand building where foreign advisers met with local officials. Inside those walls, truth was locked away under seals and signatures. The night he arrived, the building stood silent, its tall windows glowing faintly. Guards stood outside, armed and confident, unaware that history was about to knock on their gates. Traoré walked forward, his step steady, his voice calm. "Move aside. What lies inside does not belong to them. It belongs to us." The guards hesitated, their hands tightening on their weapons, but something in his eyes made them falter. They had heard the stories, they had seen the people rise, and they knew this moment was greater than their orders. Slowly, one by one, they lowered their arms. Inside, the corridors smelled of paper and dust. Files stacked in metal cabinets, documents sealed with stamps, records hidden from the eyes of the people. Traoré moved like a man searching not for treasure, but for justice. Finally, in a locked room, the truth revealed itself. He pulled open the drawers, and there it was, agreements marked with signatures of leaders who had betrayed their own, stamped with seals of European officers. Contract declaring shipments of gold, schedules of convoys, and coded messages that linked every theft to the very nations that claimed to be protectors. His hands trembled, not with fear but with the weight of what he held. Evidence that could shake the world. Proof that the suffering of his people was no accident but a crime written on paper. One of his men whispered, "With these documents, no one can deny it. The truth is ours." Traoré looked at the papers, then at his people. His voice carried both sorrow and strength. "This is more than proof. This is a voice of the dead, the cry of the living, and the future of those yet to be born. They will know what was stolen, and they will know who stood against it." As dawn broke, he stepped out of the building with the files in his hands. The city stirred, and news spread like wildfire. The gold had been caught, but now the evidence was captured as well. Far away, in the halls of Europe, men who once laughed at silence now trembled. For the first time, the empire of shadows faced a light it could not extinguish. And standing at the center of it all was Ibrahim Traoré, the man who refused to let the future of his people be stolen again.